If he can do so much bad in such a small amount of time, why can't we do such good? Let's not just talk about an alternative. Let's not study an alternative. Let's deliver the alternative. And that was Maryland Governor Wes Moore, a potential 2028 contender in South Carolina this weekend in trying to offer his party a path forward. And this morning, we have a brand new CNN poll that shows what voters are thinking about both parties. David Chalian joins me here at the Magic Wall to take us through this poll. So David, what are the key takeaways? Yeah, this is where we left off on election night 2024, but we wanted to get a sense of where Americans are right now. And one key trend we're looking at here, Manu, is should the government do more, or is the government trying to do too much? 58% in our new poll of Americans now say the government should do more. That is a 30-year high. Now that we have seen. So what's driving that? Why are so many fewer Americans saying that the government is trying to do too much? Well, as you might imagine, we're seeing that movement among Republicans who are in charge of all aspects of government right now. Look at this huge drop from August of 23. 73% of Republicans said the government was doing too much. That was when Joe Biden was president. Now it's down to 57%. But we also see this decrease in those saying government's doing too much among independents as well. We also wanted to test where the country stood with the parties on various issues, okay? The crime and policing is by far and away the Republicans' best advantage. The 13 now are plus 14 a couple of years ago. But look at the economy and immigration, two key Trump issues. You see, it's still a Republican advantage, but you see that advantage is narrowing on both of those key issues. This gets to what Amy was saying. I think about some of the anxiety people have about the economy over the tariffs that we were talking about, a dead tie on world affairs, and where the Democrats have the edge: education, abortion, and climate change. We also took a look at some key attributes. This is how Americans sort of see the parties. Which party is better described as the party with strong leaders? Like, look at this. Wow. 16% of Americans say Democrats. 40% say that of the Republican Party. Now, overall, no party's doing great. Lots of Americans say neither of these qualities apply to either party. But look at how much worse off the Democrats are. A party that gets things done. Only 19% of Americans say that about the Democrats. 36% say it about the Republicans. In fact, the only place that the Democrats are numerically ahead party in the middle class. This is basically a tie, though 34% say that of Democrats, 32% say that of Republicans. But this, I think, is the most fascinating. How do partisans talk about their own party? So among Democrats and Democratic leaners, 32% say Democrats are the party with strong leadership. I mean, of their own kind. Right, 82% of Republican or Republican leaders say that about the GOP. Only 41% of Democrats say they're the party that gets things done of their own kind. And I will just say, 51%. Manu, a majority of Democrats and Democratic leaders say neither party gets the party that gets things done attribute. Imagine that is that's the project that Democrats are working on. Yeah. Beyond the issues here, there's some structural problems with the Democrats as well. There are. And again, this is where we ended up on election night in 2024. This is by county. Obviously, these were the results. But what I want to show you on this next map is we have this amazing opportunity. Donald Trump, a candidate 3 times in a row to look at those 3 successive elections, and take a look here among the shifts that we saw across the country. Everywhere you see red, here is a place that Donald Trump improved his performance from 16 to 20 to 24. Now he's lost some of these counties. Like, he didn't win all of them. But you see how much more red there is than blue places where, Clinton did better than Obama. Biden did better than Clinton, and Harris improved on that far fewer places in America than when Donald Trump increased his vote share over those 3 successive presidential elections. Yeah, there's a lot to chew on there. David Chalian, and join in. The My Panel is back here as well. Amy, what do you make of for the Democrats? We've seen bad poll after bad poll. Yet another bad poll somewhat. This is apathy among their own voters who just don't think their party's getting it done. Now, listen, some of this is a hangover from the frustrations of the last 2 elections. And the frustration about Biden, right? that he really was not present for the last year or so in their minds as president. So the last person they remember is Joe Biden. They didn't feel like he was a strong leader, and now they're not seeing anybody fill that gap. The second is when you're the out party, you're always frustrated because we don't live in a country where we have opposition leaders. There's one person who's tagged as being the voice of the party. You don't get a leader of your party until the presidential election when you get a nominee, and that's the face of your party. So everybody now, you showed what was going on in South Carolina. Everybody's trying to, on the Democratic side, be that voice. But I think it speaks to a bigger challenge for Democrats. They have spent the last 8 years being the party that is the anti-Trump party. They haven't been the party that is the pro-fill-in-the-blank party. So they've been very much defined by Donald Trump, not defined by what they want to be. Amy, Dan, in your time covering politics, you've seen Democrats in the minority before. Have they ever been this much in the abyss? Well, you could go back to the late 80s, yeah. When they lost 3 consecutive elections by huge electoral margins, and they went through a long period. It took a number of years for the party to regroup, and Bill Clinton ultimately brought them out of that. What we are not yet seeing right now is the same kind of intellectual self-reflection about what are the problems of the party. What do we do about those? How do we negate or minimize the things that people don't like about Democrats? And how do we maximize the things that people may like about Democrats as proud Democrats? So that process has barely begun, if at all. There's so much talk about who is the leader, but in a sense, before you can say who is the leader, it has to be, well, what are we about, as Amy was saying? And right now, the Democrats they don't have any consensus of what that's going to be. And there is this internal conversation into the point that you're making. But the other piece has to go along, without a doubt. And we heard Wes Moore, the Maryland governor, here at the top of the segment, talking about his message as he was in South Carolina's weekend. This is the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz. We didn't just lose the working class. We lost the working class to a billionaire who gives tax cuts to other billionaires. This last election, you could hear the primal scream of folks. Working class folks were in pain. They were yelling from the top of their lungs, do something, do something. I mean, is that the message that these Democratic voters want to hear? To do something? Yes. And what that something is, as these guys pointed out, is a big question mark. I think the more progressive, or maybe it's fair to say the more online folks in the Democratic Party, just want it to be the party of opposition, to be the party of resistance, versus stop focusing so much on that. Tell us what you're going to do for me. And I think that's where Democrats really sort of lost their way. Now, you can argue that if you're at the Biden administration, we did a lot of things for the working class. Look what we did on infrastructure. Look at what we did on bringing jobs back, on bringing manufacturing back. All of those things were focused exactly on the working class. Yes, but we were bad at community. They're good that, they say that a lot. But look, but we can communicate to that point. The party, the middle class in this poll, it is basically a dead heat between Democrats and Republicans, how they are viewed on that issue, and on the economy and immigration. Yes, the margin is narrowing. Republicans, the Republican advantage, but the Republicans still have the advantage on the economy. That has to be a real warning sign heading into the midterms. It's definitely a warning sign in the Democrats. The Democrats are struggling to put an alternative plan together. They're going to we're going to obviously oppose everything in this, basically everything in the big, beautiful bill. But I don't think that's sufficient. Again, it is a broader message about economic well-being, but they also have to deal with the cultural side of our politics. And that has been a big roadblock for them, winning back a lot of white working class voters, which are now Latinos and in some black. Yeah. and young folks. But which is why that last map that I was showing, where you see the Democrats improving upon their performance, this is in higher income, higher educated areas in the country. The large swath of not college educated, more working class. That's where Trump's improving his performance over and over each cycle. You can see why certain states, just looking at that map, have been taken off the battleground map and have become really in the Trump era Republican state. Fascinating discussion. Great. Interesting poll numbers. Please dive in.